and very utility GX attack.
Yeah, Gardevoir just kind of does it all. The energy acceleration with its Secret Spring ability is huge and what kind of puts it over the top, and then its Infinite Force attack kind of rewards you for having energy attached, punishes your opponent for having energy attached. Gardevoir is just a huge card here. And the interesting thing is it hasn't actually really made a splash yet, right? There haven't been any tournaments, any non-Japanese tournaments. Yeah, this is debut tournament, so it has a lot of hype going into it. A lot of people have tested it, are theorizing that it's good, but we actually haven't seen it perform at a North American tournament yet.
So here we see the classic opening that has happened ever since Guardian Rising came out with Tapu Lele. Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele, Wonder Tag for Bridget. I'm set up now. Like, your move.
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking earlier about how Tapu Lele can Wonder Tag for kind of tech supporters, and Bridget is exactly that. And amazing on turn 1, okay on turn 2, and then you really don't want to see it for the rest of the game there.
Exactly.
And we do see that Mikey gets 2 Ralts and a Remoraid getting ready to evolve to that Octillery. So one of the cards that is basically in every Gardevoir deck that I've seen, and is in Mark's deck as well.
Yeah, so I think the reason we see it is because they do have the ability to play one Gallade, and its Premonition ability, look at the top 5, rearrange them, pairs really well with Octillery. And now we see an Ultra Ball of Mark's own. We might see the exact same play coming.
Yeah, I would expect, as long as Mark has access to the cards, to see the exact same play. He does have the one Bridget. You just want to get a bunch of Pokemon onto the board. You know, you want to have these Ralts to evolve the Gardevoirs and Gallades, and then you want to see these Remoraids to give you kind of the Abyssal Hand Octillery in the mid to late game. And there's actually something you brought up really interesting, is that the Gardevoir deck can also play Gallade. You know, if you've been playing or watching Pokemon for the past few seasons, you've definitely seen Gallade be a real factor, especially in the expanded format. Premonition,
Maxis.
Yeah. Just usually you can just put it into play from your discard pile without evolving, but now you're just saying, you know, it doesn't really cost you much to just play one Gallade. And we are seeing the exact same play that we talked about.
However, that good.
It is going to be a little bit different here. The one difference in these lists is that Mark Garcia is running the Alolan Vulpix that we talked about at the top of the show, with that beacon attack, just letting you, for free, search your deck for 2 Pokemon, and letting you kind of get set up that way. So this is a card that has seen play in a lot of heavy evolution decks, so it's very popular in Metagross, for instance, where you're just saying, all right, I need to have multiple evolutions on the board, I need to search my deck a lot for these Pokemon, I need to make sure I can have them, and Beacon does just that.
Yeah, and now it's looking pretty. Mark has evolutions for next turn, and it's looking like this Vulpix might survive into the coming turn too. And if you can get off multiple beacons and not be end, that's kind of the dream.
Yeah, I was just going to say the big fear here is that your opponent will play an end, but we just saw Mike versus Seeker for that Sycamore and not really worry too much about it. So Mark is going to start his turn with both those evolutions in his hand, and this is huge.
Yeah, one thing this with Gardevoir GX being popular and being just an insane card, it kind of brings me back to like 2008 format, 2009 format, where GG or Gardevoir Gallade deck was the thing and just so dominant. And you kind of have that in like a different form now with Gardevoir Gallade here.
Yeah, it's just certain cards that are just pretty much always powerful. I do not suspect we'll see this Gardevoir deck be as much of a dominating force as the Gardevoir Gallade deck back in 2008. At least I hope not. But certainly a very powerful card here. This also is interesting because I think it's kind of going to be one of the slower sort of setup-focused matchups. As you know, we've seen both players. Marcus is taking his second turn here and is just probably happy to just beacon here, keep evolving, and kind of get things going over a few turns until he can really start attacking and taking big damage.
Yeah, you were saying Alolan Vulpix was the one difference. Well, we saw with the prize cam, Mike actually plays the Diancie, and its attack allows you for 1 fairy energy to just straight up evolve one of your Pokemon on your bench. But it taking an energy is kind of a little bit slower than Beacon.
Yeah, it is less risky than Beacon because you can immediately just evolve. You don't worry about any of the end traps that we talked about. However, it does cost 1 energy, and it is a little bit it has a little bit less utility as you have to have the Pokemon that you want to search for on the board ready to evolve already. So I've seen players I respect go both ways. I don't know that there's a really decided upon best way yet. Personally, I do like the Vulpix. I like not having to commit any energy to it, and having a little bit more utility there, but I can't blame Mike for what he chose either.
And Vulpix is cuter than...
That is factually correct,
Yeah.
yes, objectively.
So we see the Glade come down from Mike. Kind of not really a card that's good in this matchup other than its Premonition ability. Won't really take a lot of knockouts with Sensitive Blade.
Yeah, Sensitive Blade's something that's really nice for non-EX, when you're attacking a non-EX Pokemon, or when you're attacking maybe something with weakness, trying to soften something up, but not going to be too relevant here, I don't think. Is going to Premonition, which is big. You know, like we said, the combination of Premonition plus Abyssal Hand can be big. And like we said, non-EX attackers, Mike is saying, you know, I don't want to commit a Gardevoir yet. I can't commit a Gardevoir yet. I don't have one on the board. So I'm going to just kind of pressure you with this Gallade, take a knockout here, cut off your Beacon ability, and kind of make you have something, make you try to knock me out. And when you do, you'll be knocking out a Pokemon that I don't care about as much.
Yeah, and there's also another difference that we see in their list with Mike playing Fisherman. Kind of late game, this Gardevoir GX deck really struggles to find energy. Like, you maybe have 2 Gardevoir or 3 Gardevoir in play, but you're like, well, I can only use like 1 Secret Spring. So Fisherman's like, oh, well, I'm going to drop down 4 energy in 1 turn. And it's interesting to see that Mark doesn't actually play it, but he does have the first Gardevoir coming down, and this kind of creates kind of a game of chicken where I don't want to attach too many energies, because then he's just going to attach a bunch more and knock me out.
Yes.
And it's kind of remember like those old Mewtwo EX wars.
Yes, Mewtwo and Eviltal is what it reminds me of a lot, where you kind of have to really, all right, how many energy do I exactly need to knock you out? And then you have to think, you're thinking through the lines too, okay, what if they get 2 Gardevoir out? And then they just double colorless too, like what's the worst thing that punishes me? Like there's a lot of things you have to think about here. I think in general, the rule is going to be have as few energy on any one Pokemon as possible, but it is, you know, you do have to still commit a lot of energy.
All I'm saying is Mike is glad he's a math teacher right now, because there's a lot of math involved in this mirror match. And another thing to note is the Max Potion that Mark is playing might throw a wrench into things too, but there we see 3 energies straight away on this Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, we do see that Wonder Energy hasn't really seen much play in the past. It's going to prevent effects of attacks. Not relevant in this matchup, but relevant for other things in the format. Just both players choosing to play Wonder Energy, Mark with a little bit thicker of a line.
Yeah, and the Infinite Force from Mark dealing exactly 150 damage, taking knockout on the Glade, and now it's tied to prizes, but with Mark getting the knockout on a Gallade, that's basically a line of Gardevoir gone. Along with the Gardevoir in the discard already that Mike had a discard from a Sycamore earlier on.
Yeah, and Gardevoir GX is no slouch with 230 hit points, so it is often hard. Like, we did talk about the math and how that works out to where you don't want to commit too many energies, but I found that sometimes if you're the player with the first Gardevoir, if your opponent stumbles at all, like if you knock out a Gardevoir, or in this case a Gallade where you have this similar Gardevoir line, it can be kind of hard for them. You can just kind of run them over if they can't get one-hit knockouts, because you have to commit more energy, but you're also getting the prizes as the benefit.
And there we see the Rescue Stretcher. So kind of reusing that Gardevoir GX that he threw away earlier on. And here's the math coming in.
So we will need to see a double colorless and a choice band.
Does not look like he got it though. And he's turning his Pokemon with abilities, showing that he's used the ability, which is kind of nice for us.
Go big or go home.
We also see that Mike does not have the double colors and choice band, but he does have the second Secret Spring, which is another out here.
It's just insane to me that you can use it on the bench too. Like, this is one of the best like energy acceleration attack or abilities that we've seen in a while. And he does get the double colorless off the Sycamore.
He does find the double colorless, so that will be the knockout.
All right, now I wish I was a math teacher, because I need to count up the damage that it's doing.
Saying 2,
7,
4,
so Yeah, no, 8.
8, yeah. There's 8 because
The one energy is hiding,
energy, yeah. So it is going to get the knockout here, and you see just how powerful this is. Mike started this turn with 1 energy in play. He then attached a double colorless, which counts as 2 for Infinite Force, and had 2 acceleration abilities in Secret Spring. And now he's taking the knockout. He's eliminating that whole Gardevoir line, as well as 3 energy from Mark's side of the board. And now he's back in the driver's seat.
Like, he's still
he still has
playing
things
cards
to
for
do.
his turn. Ultra Ball, get another Waltz in play. Because why not? 3 Gardevoirs is pretty good, right?
As many as you can, really.
And the one thing with this deck, too, since it plays that Octillery, Abyssal Hand is a great way to get you out of those late game ends to try and combat the disruption that your opponent's going to throw at you.
Yeah, I've seen every list run some sort of late game protection, either in the form of Octillery or Rangaroo. I think most players are on Octillery, just a little bit more consistent there, especially combined with Premonition. And we see Mike take the big knockout there. Let's see if Mark can respond. He just needs...
Mark's hand's kind of awkward. There's a few rare candy which he would like to use now, but he doesn't have an outlet for it in a Gardevoir or even a Gallade.
And I think there's 7 or 8 cards in hand. So I'm not sure if he can actually draw off of Octillery before he has to, commit to playing a support or something like that. Yeah, you see him kind of... No, he's just going to go ahead and concede. Yeah. Okay, so...
The next card was the Gardevoir, too.
Wow.
So even if he realized, he looked at his hand, he's like, all right, I'm not even going to be able to draw 1 card. So... Okay, I guess that's game.
Yeah, he's just saying, I can't actually do anything here. I can Lysander and try to stall a little bit, but he's making a very good play here, which is saying, I know that time is a factor, right?
Yeah.
We haven't actually seen, or at least since we've been casting today, we haven't seen this come up yet, but this is definitely something that can come up, is that when you're playing in tournaments, you have to be very, very aware of the clock. You don't actually see the clock. The players don't have access to the exact time, but they all, especially players at this level, they all have access to or they'll have the ability to kind of say, okay, I think it's been, about 10 minutes, about 20 minutes. I need to be aware of this. And Mark was just saying, I'd rather give myself the best chance to win a game 2 and go to a game 3 if possible, rather than just play this out for, it maybe last 2-3 more turns, but I know that I'm not going to get anywhere with this.
Yeah, and historically, at least me noticing with Mark, is he's always been very good about time management when playing Pokemon. And you see it now, there's 37 minutes left in the round. And while this match may take long, just because it's a mirror and it's kind of a game of chicken, like you said, we saw there, if you get a big Gardevoir up and your opponent stumbles, then the game's already pretty decided.
Right. It is very much about being able to respond with Gardevoirs, or at the very least, not put yourself in a position where you're just completely getting run over like Mark was. So I think that's both players taking mulligans here. No basic Pokemon, gonna have to reshuffle and draw new hands. I think that was a very good play of Mark. It was sort of an early concession. I think a lot of people would call it that, but he's gonna miss an entire turn. He has only a few more turns left in that game.
Yeah, unfortunately, he did flip over the top card, and it was the Gardevoir GX that he needed.
But even then, he didn't really have he didn't have any supporters going on. I don't think he had a whole lot of energy either. He still would have needed more on top of that, which could have come, but you can't really, you have to trust that you're making the right decision regardless of what the actual outcome is, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the one drawback with this Gardevoir GX deck is it is a stage 2.
Yes.
You do have a lot of moving parts. You have rare candies. You need the stage 2s on time. And that's where, the Vulpixes and the Deanshis help. But it still just wasn't enough for Mark.
Let's go ahead and take a look at these players' prizes as they get ready to start game 2. Those are Mark's, I believe. 2 energies prized. Mark does run the 2/2 Octillery, so having the 1 Remoraid prize.
2 double colorless and a Gardevoir for Mike.
So 2 double colors is going to be a big deal for Mike. Players, once again, opening with the same Pokemon.
They're playing the good Remoraid, the Iron Pool.
Right, they are playing the same Remoraid this time. We see that classic play of Tapu Lele into Bridget, into basically fill my bench from Mark.
And his hand is good, too. There's Krylia, there's a rare candy, so if he draws into a Gardevoir, and then he has an end for next turn.
And back to your earlier point about this being a setup deck having to play stage 2. This is one of the few decks that we've seen that relies on a stage 2 Pokemon without having any way to kind of cheat it out, so to speak. With Decidueye, for instance, you have Forest of Giant Plant, which can help your evolutions. With Greninja, you have Water Duplicates, which can kind of skip a stage. But Gardevoir, besides Rare Candy, similar to Metagross, Gardevoir is just doing it the old-fashioned way. You have Volt Pictures of your Pokemon, you're going to Rare Candy, but you have to just kind of do it like you're supposed to.
Yeah, and there we actually see the Diancie coming out. Unfortunately, Mike does not get a Ralts in play.
Yeah, nothing. He just has to. He's going to be able to get the Artillery to draw more cards for next turn. But
yeah, so we saw a Sycamore discard a bunch of supporters, and then he must have drawn just a lot of supporters and energy again.
Yeah, Mike plays pretty fast. You can quite see his hand there, but wow, not where you want to be on turn 1, on your turn 1, going into your opponent's turn 2, especially after your opponent has gotten basically their main setup, right?
Yeah, now Mark has time to find a way to retreat this Remoraid and hopefully beacon and set up multiple Gardevoirs, because that was his problem game 1, is just only having the one, where Mike got that turn with 2 of them in play.
Yeah, and the ball is in his court, and he does have to commit a double colorless there, but he is going to be able to beacon for free. Another reason I like the 1/1 Volt Picks is it can get you out of spots like this. Not get you out of spots like this, rather, but it allows you to be able to pay your energy for other things. And we see the Artillery.
Mike gets 2 Ralts off of that N. And now his hand is kind of a little awkward because I don't know if he wants the Sycamore, but he does have the N that he discarded earlier. So Verse Seeker for an N, getting rid of that Beacon.
Yeah, I was going to say, the downside to Beacon is just this. You put them into your hand, they're not on the board like they are with Diancie, so they're now away, and kind of Mark spent his last turn evolving and discarding an energy, basically.
Yeah, now you would have to think Mike would be ahead just because he's going to be able to evolve with Diancie and hopefully have Mark not draw the cards he beaconed for, essentially.
Yeah, the only downside, the only bad thing about Mike here is that he has an energy attachment behind, but when he also has more potential outs to Gardevoir, so he can definitely catch up in that respect. Mike going to go ahead. He's going to get a Kirlia here as his only option, but he's just going to go ahead and look through his deck and just make sure he hasn't determined, or he makes sure he isn't wrong about what his prizes are.
He's like, oh yeah, double colorless prize.
We see him choose to evolve the Ralts that does not have energy attached to it, and we actually saw a similar thing last game where he attached to DCE to his first Ralts and then he evolved it into Gallade. So that may be kind of his plan in this matchup, is I'm going to commit my first energy and my first evolution to a Gallade and just build up a Gardevoir outside of that, kind of sitting in the bench. It also allows him to not get punished so hard by something like a Lysander or a Guzma. So if he'll either lose a smaller Pokemon with an energy or the bigger Pokemon, but not both. So smart play there, and I think it's kind of indicative to how Mike plays the matchup.
Yeah, you really want to try to play that 7 prize game where you give up 1 prize attacker and then you attack with 3 GX Pokemon afterwards.
Right. And ends flying back and forth here. As it looks like Mark attached and then just immediately played the end.
Yeah, his hand was not very good. It was filled with max potions and rare candies, where he still has been having trouble getting those Gardevoirs in play.
Yeah, Mark also wisely deciding to kind of spread his energy around, putting the energy on the Ralts putting the energy on the Ralts rather, not the Kirlia.
And we do see a Gardevoir and a Kirlia.
Here we go, first Gardevoir of the game in play. And just looks like no energy, we're just going to see a Beacon. Oh, we already attached, rather, sorry.
Yeah, well, he didn't have one in hand for Secret Spring.
Yeah, he didn't have a Fairy. And Beacon is going to find Gardevoir and Octillery, same cards it found last turn.
So if Mike does not find like a Guzma or a Lysander, something like that to kind of disrupt something, or even just an N, if he doesn't have those, Mark's next turn is going to be very explosive.
He's going to absolutely go off with 2 Gardevoir GXs in play and Octillery to draw him more cards. I think he has a double colorless in his hand as well. Man. A Sycamore. So he is going to be, it looks like unless something changes, Mark is going to be the first to act, but Mike does have this turn to play. He's going to play his 4th Ralts. Maybe deciding that's a little too much.
It's never too much. As many Ralts as you can.
And there's an interesting kind of dynamic here too, where both players have a non-EX, non-big attacker Pokemon that they can kind of sit back on for as long as they want. But I think in this specific situation, the Vulpix is actually winning here because Mark's already ahead, and he hasn't had to commit energy to it. So I think, Mikey is in an interesting spot because he's behind on the board, but he kind of needs to be the first to act because Mark is happy to just say, all right, I'll just attach more, I'll beacon more, I don't really care.
It also forces Mike to end every turn, too.
Exactly.
And so now we see the evolution of the Gardevoir GX, and then a Sparkling Wish to Acrylia. And looking at Mark's hand, it's great. There's Rare Candy, Gardevoir GX. There's Ultra Ball to get an Octillery, and I think a Sycamore, too.
Wow, yes, man. Mark just has everything he needs now. And again, Mike, considering which to evolve, we have seen him commit the double Colorless onto a Gallade before, but now he's just saying, might be a little bit too late for that. I'm just going to play the Curlia here.
And wow, Mark has a Guzma off the top of the deck. That means a Gardevoir GX, for 1 energy, can take a knockout on the Curlia on the bench if he wants to. And it also means he's able to retreat that Vulpix for free.
Just as you said, he's just going to do that. Go ahead and send up his Gardevoir. Mark will be the first to act here, drawing that Guzma, saying, all right, I can take advantage of this situation now. I can eliminate some energy. I can eliminate this Curlia.
Looking at Mark's hand, this is probably like, if you were given the option to pick the best 7 cards you can get off an N at this point in the game, this would probably be the 7 cards I would pick.
Yeah, absolutely great hand there off of that N, especially with that Guzma. Second Gardevoir GX onto the board now, Abyssal hand.
Now you just need energy, which he unfortunately does not get any fairy.
He does not. He does have the double Colorless in his hand.
At this point, you might want to keep it in your hand, not knowing what you want to attack with next turn.
Yeah, he's basically just deciding, all right, do I try and build up a bigger Gardevoir, or do I attach to one of them on the bench? He does decide to go for the Tapu Lele, which is kind of the safest play, I guess, because it's not exposing energy to to opposing Gardevoirs on your Gardevoir. And a Tapu Lele can kind of act like a mini Gardevoir GX. It's not doing quite as much, but still punishing your opponent for having lots of energy attached.
Exactly. And there we see the knockout with the Infinite Force. And now on Mike's turn, Wonder Tag for that Teammates card, which is a card that we've seen a lot in random lists like Vesequin, all that stuff like that. But it's really kind of a great utility in Stage 2 decks, especially with Tapu Lele being able to search it out. You're like, okay, Rare Candy, Gardevoir, get 2 energy, attach them anywhere I want.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've traditionally seen it in the decks where their Pokemon are getting knocked out more often. But in these decks, there are also a lot of moving parts. So it doesn't look like Mark is actually playing that. Mike is the only one that has a teammate. So it's definitely not in every list, but it is pretty interesting for situations just like this. Second Gardevoir GX.
And he does have 2 Fairy Energy in hand with a Sycamore, but he's choosing not to load up just the one. It would be too much of an overcommitment.
Yeah, he really has to think about where to put these energy to not get punished by an opposing Gardevoir, or even that Tapu Lele, which Tapu Lele, again, not as strong as Gardevoir, but when you're saying, all right, well, I have a non-Gardevoir Pokemon, I haven't built up this Pokemon, I'm just going to attack with it, it can be very, very strong and kind of trade advantageously, even though they're both GXs.
All right, and now we see the different side of things with this game, because earlier, the first game was okay, a ton of energy on Gardevoir, 1 hits back and forth. Now, it's well, I'm going to play 1.
Yep.
Deal 60, then maybe next turn I'll load up a bunch of stuff. But that's where Mark's version of this list comes in handy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if Mikey chooses to play this game where he's committing few energy, going for multiple turn knockouts, the 2 Max Potion that Mark is playing are going to be huge here. He's playing right into Mark's play style, as you see that Max Potion on the bottom of the deck there. If Mark were to Max Potion here, he's not really losing anything. He's going to lose 1 energy, but he can attach that for free. So Mikey, Definitely has no way of knowing that. It's definitely not clear cut that it's a mistake at all. But what he has chosen to do, the line he has chosen, is kind of playing into how Mark rather wants this game to go.
You also have the Acerola too, which is a new supporter from Burning Shadows, which is kind of a effect that we've seen before, like Mr. Briney's Compassion or AZ, where if your Pokemon is damaged, you're able to pick it up and the energy attached to it, put it back in your hand, and like, oh, okay, maybe use another Secret Spring. Gets more utility out of the Pokemon and saves it from getting knocked out.
Yeah, another card that just Mark is running is we see another Guzma here. Mark is saying, I'm going to switch this damaged Gardevoir out. I'm going to bring up your Ralts. Mark is very focused on basically not engaging here. We see that Max Potion come down.
Max Potion coming down. That's huge.
Undoing Mike's last turn, basically. And Mark is really saying here, okay, I'm going to play a tempo-based game, basically. I want to take prizes on your little things while building up my board and protecting the Pokemon that I care about more from your big ones. I want you to be the first person to commit a bunch of energy. And if not, I'm just going to sit here and, take small prizes. I'm fine with having 1 or 2 energy on each of my Pokemon.
And that's where I think Mark really built his list for the mirror match with the 2 Max Potions and the Acerola.
Yeah, I think the mirror match is definitely something you had to focus on for this tournament because, in my opinion, just from talking to players, it was going to be the first or second most popular deck, for sure. It's questionable whether it's going to be more popular than the Garbodor variants, but if it's going to be number 2, it's definitely going to be close. So preparing for the mirror is very important here, and it looks like Mark has kind of focused his list a little bit more that way, which is helping him here. He did lose game 1, but game 1 wasn't really much of a game. Didn't really have much going on for him. He didn't really have many options. He conceded on his 4th or 5th turn or something like that. But now he's really getting to execute his style of this Gardevoir deck. I feel like just low energy commitments anywhere. Just trying to use my Guzmas, use my Lysanders wisely, and make the first move.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Mark, he still has that Gardevoir GX in the prizes. So this Corellia, he doesn't really want to make it a Gallade. So he's really digging for that last Gardevoir GX.
We see a Guzma of Mike's own choosing to do 90 here. Again, playing this small ball type game, just dealing a little bit of damage here and there. Mike does know that he plays Max Potion, doesn't know exactly how many. And again, we see Mark just very unwilling to engage here. Would rather just save these Gardevoirs and sit back and play a more tempo-based game by attacking with this Tapu Lele. Just saying,
does the same thing, 60 damage.
Yeah, it's doing the same thing at this point. Is kind of generally a little bit less powerful, but again, he's not. If this Tapu Lele gets knocked out, Mark isn't losing Ralts, Corellia, Gardevoir, any energy, right? He's just losing this one Pokemon that he already played on the board and already committed to. There is a question of whether he wants to commit more energy to it, whether he needs to or not, but he is choosing to just say, I'm going to conserve my resources as much as possible, Lysander this Gardevoir, and let's see an Abyssal Hand before we do anything else.
Oh, the Choice Band might make things interesting with Gardevoir math later on. And another thing with the Twilight GX, Mark can reuse those Max Potions. Kind of make the game go even longer than it should. Yeah,
we haven't even gotten to Twilight GX yet. Gardevoir's GX attack, just shuffle 10 cards from your discard pile right into your deck. Just
it's pretty good.
Yeah, if you any cards you want, energy, supporters, versus seekers, like you said, Max Potion, just anything you want. You normally think of Gardevoir as a deck that's more focused on doing big damage, but it's interesting because it also has that GX attack that lets you just be so much more consistent.
All right, and thanks to Mike's Fisherman, he's able to get the 2 energy he needs to take the knockout on Tapu Lele GX. He's the first one to build up this giant Gardevoir, and now it's allowing Mark to not even build up a giant Gardevoir to take the knockout, kind of forcing Mike to redo it again next turn.
Right, he is, that played out exactly as Mark wanted. Mark said, attack with this Tapu Lele, you have to deal with it. Mike said, okay, well, I will deal with it. And then Mark said, okay, well, now I'm going to kind of win this exchange because I'm going to knock out your big GX that you've committed to, and you just knocked out my Tapu Lele. And Mark is missing that Gardevoir GX in the prizes, but he does have another one on the board. It does have damage on it, but hopefully it won't matter too much with only 2 prizes remaining after he takes his knockout this turn. So this game has definitely been in Mark's favor, and I love the way he's played it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing we haven't really talked about, or if you haven't really noticed, is the prizes that he's been taking before this, they were a Krylia and a Ralts. Kind of shutting off Mike's outs to any more attackers. That's going to leave him with 1 Gardevoir GX in play, and it's kind of going to put a cap on his damage that he's going to be able to like surprise him with.
Yeah, there's no recovery besides the Twilight GX we just talked about in Mike's list. I don't think. No field, or sorry, no rescue stretch. Oh no, sorry, there is 2 rescue stretchers. Sorry, I missed those on the bottom. So he does have ways to get those back, but he will have to rebuild them all, right? Even if he
and there's the second max potion, and it's looking very strong for Mark in this game.
All that stuff I just said about him having the damaged Gardevoir, maybe that being an issue, is not important anymore.
See, you should have just known Mark was going to draw the max potion, because that's what I always expect. He's like, well, Mark's going to have it anyway.
Fair enough.
Why would you bet against him? And here we see an Infinite Force doing 210 damage. I did the math.
Good job. It's going to be a knockout because of that existing 80 damage on the Gardevoir already.
Now go ahead and use Infinite Force for KO.
And there we go. And he does get the Gardevoir GX from the prizes. Next turn, Mike will be staring down 3 Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, and Mike is in an interesting position where he can maybe take a knockout here. He needs some things to go right for him, but then there's just another Gardevoir on the other side ready to attack. And we see the Field Blower getting rid of the choice bands. That's smart. Going to prevent his Infinite Force from doing as much damage, but he's still... Mark is still very much ahead here with just so many attackers in play.
All right, and here we see a Versus Seeker 4 and N, putting Mark down to 2. But thanks to the Auxiliary,
it's
put him down to 5.
It's almost irrelevant. It's just kind of drawing Mikey more cards. But
even anyway, Mark drew a Sycamore off the 2.
Well, sometimes you just get there.
All right, he does get some energy, but attacking with his Tapu Lele is really risky. Mark only needs 2 energy to take the knockout, end the game. He has 1 in hand.
Yep, there's the
and then
Twilight.
Abyssal hand. No, but he does have the Sycamore. He also has a Guzma. I don't know, or like a Verse Seeker, but I don't think that's going to be relevant.
Yeah, I think he's just going to go ahead and play out as many cards as he can.
Yeah. Oh, I think he only has like 7 or 8 cards in his deck.
Yeah, so there's a Sycamore. He's drawing his entire deck, and I think Mike was just about to scoop. He's just waiting for him to show the energy. So Mark Garcia takes game 2 here. That was excellently played by Mark there. I really like, in game 1, we didn't really see Mark get to play much of a game. We saw both players kind of set up and then Mark have a dead hand. And that game was really interesting. I think Mike really made plays that were fine. They were good. They were correct, but they played into how Mark wanted to play the game. The Tapu Lele exchange, the Max Potion exchange, and that just went Mark's way the entire time.
Yeah, it definitely looked like Mark was in control the entire game and kind of forcing Mike to make the plays he wanted to, like you said. And the thing is, with him scooping game 1 so fast, there's 16 minutes left for game 3. That's plenty of time.
Yeah, these players they know that time is, they know that they don't have infinite time left. They are going to play faster. Mark probably saved himself 5 minutes.
Yeah.
By scooping early. He definitely, that concession early in game 1 is coming back to reward him here. It's exactly where he wanted to be. And 16 minutes is not the most time in the world, but it should be enough to finish a game as long as nothing goes wrong. So it'll be really interesting to see which of these players will be advancing 2-3-0 here at the World Championship.
Yeah, and Mark, he essentially was like, okay, I'm going to give up this game. My deck's really good in the mirror, but it's not doing anything right now. So I'll take my chances with 2 games in a row instead of trying to come back from this one.
Exactly, and players drawing their opening hands here. Let's see what we have. I see a Tapu Lele start from Mark. Didn't quite see what Mike's opener was. Let's take a look at the prizes here. Those are Mark's prizes.
Nothing too bad.
Nothing huge.
The Auxiliary, he does play the 2 Auxiliary, though, compared to Mike's 1.
Nothing too bad there either on Mike's side, and both players opening the same Pokemon again. The same Pokemon, but it's been different every time.
Yeah.
So we see just a Guzma in hand for... Oh, no, sorry. Well, all right.
He was hiding.
He was hiding the Sycamore.
He was trying to trick you. He Sycamored into 2 double colorless, too.
And he just has to pass the turn. Nothing else to play onto the board. And let's see what Mark can put together here. Getting rid of that choice
Mark's
band
hand's
with the
kind
blower.
of the same, like, anemic start.
They just have the Sycamore. All right, so both players having Sycamores here. Let's see.
Let's see if he has access to a Vulpix.
I
It does not look like it.
Yeah, I don't see a...
He got the
Ralts
wrong
either.
basic water Pokemon.
Yeah, he just has to pass the turn back. No Ralts. So this is the position that
His
Mike
hand is
was
terrible.
in last game, except much worse because Mike had a Diancie on the board. No Ralts. I don't... Are there supporter outs?
No, there's 2 Rare Candy, 2 Choice Band, and 2 double colorless, I believe, or like a double colorless and a Wonder.
Oh, wow. So we might actually see Mark just kind of draw a dead hand here.
That's really unfortunate, seeing as how he built his deck for this matchup.
Yeah, we do see that Mike is kind of delayed the classic turn 1 play by a turn.
It's still good.
Yeah, it's still good. It's great on turn 1, good on turn 2, and throughout the rest of the game. But here he is, especially when your opponent passes with no Ralts in play, and you're going to end your turn with 3 Ralts in play and maybe some more things going on for you. You feel great if you're Mike here.
Or even just a big energy drive.
Yeah, that's fine too. Just whatever he can do. It looks like he does have double colorless. He doesn't have... Oh, no, he does have the curly. He just played it, excuse me. Mike is really setting up his board here. It's not the fastest setup. He doesn't have a Diancie in play or anything like that, but he's fine to be where he's at, especially if Mark needs to have nothing. Lysander off the top.
That's not what you need.
Well, it doesn't really matter here. Mike was... I mean, he was attacking, but he wasn't caring about the attacks. He's just building up his board.
He can Lysander the Ralts and take a knockout, but that means all Mike needs to take a revenge knockout is 1 energy.
It looks like that's probably what Mark's considering doing now. Is what does this Lysander do for me? I know that I've had these, and I know that I've had these cards in my hand for a turn. What does this new card do? Yeah, he looks like he does decide to Lysander the Ralts, commit the double colorless, and take the knockout. Hoping his prizes can draw him something. Didn't quite see what that was. Just a fairy energy.
So if I'm Mark right now, you really have to think like, well, all right, I don't think I'm going to win this game anymore. I have to at least survive 13 minutes.
Yeah, that is supposed to be his plan. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be able to happen, as Mike seems to have a pretty good start here. Gardevoir GX already on the board. Any energy will will let him take a knockout here and kind of leave a lone Remoraid with no supporters in hand for Mark.
Secret Spring.
And there it is.
If he wants to discard a Stadium and play, he can.
That is true. And there's a Professor Sycamore for 7 cards. So we see, thanks to Gardevoir GX, 2 energy attached, 7 cards drawn off the Sycamore.
He has a Rare Candy and an Ultra Ball in hand to get another Gardevoir GX in play.
And Mike is just absolutely taking over this game. You see Mark just kind of looking at his hand, shuffling them around, saying, "Oh, is anything going to change? Like, are these cards better now? Did something happen? Oh no, you just
Rare
you
Candy's
keep
still Rare
building
Candy.
things up. Okay, this is not good for me." We are going to see a knockout this turn, and then it's just Mark's top deck. If he top decks a supporter card, a Tapu Lele, something to keep him in the game, he will have 1 more turn. But if not,
Mike actually goes for the Remoraid and gets the Gardevoir anyway with the Abyssal hand. 2 Gardevoir
just
GX
like
in
we
play,
drew
turn
it up.
3. Yeah, of course.
So 2 Gardevoir GX in play, attaching 3 energy a turn, taking a knockout.
Hasn't even attached
here.
return.
He has
He's
attached
not
return. It's a DCE.
Oh, okay.
There's the knockout. 2 prizes. Let's see what the top deck is.
Guzma.
It's a Guzma. I don't think
There
that's
we
going to
go.
matter. Yeah,
Mark's-
Mark is going to
Yeah.
go ahead and concede. Mike Fouchet takes game 3, advances to 3-0 here at the World Championship. Unfortunately,